No one sees it forming. Not the books they're reading, the thoughts they're questioning, or the quiet rewrites happening in the back of their mind. But the Sigma INFJ is always building something. Not a brand. Not a persona. A philosophy. And the most powerful part. They rarely speak of it. Part 1, built through observation, not influence. The world teaches most people what to think. But Sigma INFJs observe the world to decide what to believe. They don't absorb ideologies, they deconstruct them. They notice inconsistencies in what people praise versus what they practice. They notice how systems reward obedience, not growth. And they notice how the loudest voices often lack the deepest thought. So they withdraw. Not out of arrogance, but to protect the clarity forming inside. They know that external noise can distort internal knowing. And truth takes silence to hear. Part 2, not borrowed. Not trendy. Not loud. The philosophies Sigma INFJs build are not borrowed from viral posts or trending books. They don't rush to quote the newest thought leader. They're not swayed by popularity, they're repelled by it. Because when everyone starts thinking the same, the Sigma INFJ quietly steps back. Not to rebel, but to reflect. To question. To search for what's real, not what's rewarded. They want something deeper than temporary wisdom. They're after timelessness. Something that still holds true when no one's watching. Something that anchors them in a storm, not just posts well on Instagram. Part 3, shaped by experience, forged in solitude. Sigma INFJs don't just form beliefs. They live them. Their worldview isn't theoretical, it's tested. Tested by betrayal. Refined by solitude. Strengthened by walking away from what no longer aligns, even if it costs them everything. They don't preach what they haven't survived. They don't teach what they haven't personally wrestled with. And they don't ask others to live by values they don't follow themselves, in private. Because for them, integrity isn't about performance. It's about alignment. Even when no one's looking. Especially when no one's looking. Part 4, why they keep it to themselves. A Sigma INFJ could change the temperature of a conversation in seconds, if they wanted to. But most of the time, they stay quiet. Why? Because their philosophy is not meant to be shared lightly. It's meant to guide them. They're not interested in debating strangers. They don't need to be understood by the masses. And they've learned it, the hard way, that most people want agreement, not truth. So they keep their frameworks close. And wait. They wait for someone who speaks in layers. Who listens with curiosity, not defensiveness. Someone who values discernment over quick conclusions. Then, and only then, do they begin to share. Carefully. Deliberately. Not to impress, but to connect. Part 5, the philosophies themselves. What kind of beliefs live inside a Sigma INFJ? They tend to hold philosophies that sound simple, until you try living them. Like, peace is more valuable than being right. If it costs you your authenticity, it's too expensive. Not every truth needs to be spoken, but it should always be known. I will love, but I will not chase. My silence is not absence, it is presence that needs no approval. I don't need to win, I need to remain whole. Healing is not linear. But it's always my responsibility. These are not just phrases. They're blueprints. Guiding how they exit situations, hold space for others, and rebuild after pain. They act like internal compasses, pointing them back to themselves every time the world tries to pull them off course. Part 6, The cost of having a private framework. There's a quiet loneliness that comes with living by your own code. Others might call them rigid. Too intense. Hard to read. What's really happening is this. The Sigma INFJ's inner philosophy doesn't allow them to play games. They won't manipulate just to keep the peace. They won't flatter to stay liked. They won't compromise truth for convenience. And that level of integrity can be confronting, especially to those who haven't built their own. So people walk away, or misunderstand them, or label them as cold. But the Sigma INFJ doesn't flinch. Because their philosophy, the one they built in secret, reminds them. Being true to yourself will always cost less than betraying your soul for acceptance. Conclusion: they don't need a platform, they need alignment. The Sigma INFJ doesn't build their philosophy to gain followers. They build it to gain clarity. Not to shout louder, but to walk straighter. Not to convert others, but to recognize the ones who are already on the path. Not to dominate, but to discern. To know who's safe, who's aligned, who's worth opening the vault for. Because behind their quiet presence is a brilliant, rigorous, intentional framework. Forged in solitude, tested in pain, and honored in silence. They don't build their beliefs to impress the world. They build them to survive it and to rise above it.